The front bit episode with on my free time at home when I'm just chilling.
Front bit just makes me think of one thing.
Welcome to our bonus episode, one of two that will be happening in between season 3 and 4. We're really excited. We've been asking for some questions from our community to see what concepts or ideas or language that we use that seems to maybe go right over your head or that you want a little deepening on. We have a couple of questions, a lot that we could share, but we're going to try to keep it short and sweet for this little bonus episode. I am Tara. I'm here with Victoria. Frequency
Hi, everyone.
Broads are
We've missed
here.
you. We couldn't get enough. We we had to come back.
Always
We had
coming
more
back.
to say.
Always. When do we not have more to say? Okay, so Victoria, what question should we start with?
How do we know what it feels like / looks like in other dimensions? Let's get right into it.
Whew, okay. Victoria and I talk a lot about other realms, other dimensions, other timelines. Um, there's a lot to kind of talk about and explore with this. So, what do you think? What's your thoughts on that, Victoria?
High level, it really is a matter of perception and perspective.
Mm,
It takes a calm mind, a relaxed body, um, to enter different dimensions as we can get to them in the 3D human vessel that
mhm,
we're in. There's so much that happens within the mind. And I think that when we're talking about dimensions, it very much comes from a state in being able to access different timelines, different states of perception
mhm,
where you are often activated by light. I think that's one of the biggest things is if you're out in the world interacting and you feel like you're kind of in a fifth dimension mode, you're probably seeing some form of light or aura around a person. I often see like little sparkles of blue or sometimes fairies. And yeah, so I think light is a huge factor in seeing different dimensions with your eye. But I think so much of it comes from your mind's eye.
mhm.
And activating the third eye is something we haven't really talked about, have we?
I guess not.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What are your
Let's.
thoughts on this
I'm
question?
gonna.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm like
gonna.
season
Yeah, I'm
4.
like, let's put a pin on like activating. Write that down. Write that down. Activating your third eye as a season 4 topic. Um, because I think season 4, we want to go a little deeper with some things as we love to do. But for me, I think you're 100% correct with the perception of it, it being internally more than externally. I mean, we get those external synchronicities. And you mentioned like your brain being a big part of that. And it's about, from my perspective, it's about getting into that like, I don't want to use the wrong word. I don't know if it's theta wave. So it's one of those brain states that's basically like your dream state where everything's really calm, that meditative state. And from what I've experienced, is the most important piece is to just follow your truth. And we say that a lot. But when I go into the realm, when I'm trying to get into a new realm and I'm like, I want to see, you mentioned fairies. And I start taking my preconditioned brain's understanding of what the fairy realm will look like and implanting that, then it doesn't feel authentic to me. I don't know if it's right. Then I start second questioning myself. So I just go in and ask. I'm like, let me see. And I follow the breadcrumbs. If I get one little thing, I'm like, let me look at that deeper. Let me look at that longer. All in my third eye, of course. And allowing to just accept whatever I see as my truth and stepping into that awareness then brings forth the synchronicities for me to go, okay, yeah, okay. Other people, when they step into this type of reality, see very similar things, whether it be through other people who channel, books, people who are leading guided meditations through a similar space. But I always find that my strongest understanding of other timelines and dimensions come from me first and trusting what I see, not second guessing what I see when I ask, because that's what it always comes down to. I'm asking fairies, please come out. Pleiadians, please come out. Atlantis, please come out. Show me what I need to see. Show me this realm. Show me the beings, whatever it is. And I see that as truth. I have to believe it in my heart. If I start second guessing myself, I'm not going to see the truth. I have to believe it in my heart. And once that's a true belief of mine, like, hey, this is how I see this realm, it's like boom, 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 boom. Here's all the synchronicities that give you validation. So when you're exploring other realities and dimensions and timelines, blah, 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 it's getting in that meditative state and trusting what you see, then going outward to see if anyone's had a similar experience.
Since we finally live in a world where we can openly talk about this shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I've realized from this whole exploration of different dimensions, and I think some of the most activating times for me have been during sound baths or some sort of
Mm.
sound frequency journey. But it made me realize I don't know shit about shit. And literally, there's just so much out there that has not been predefined by societal constructs that make zero sense,
Mm-hmm.
that show me how minuscule my existence is, but at the same time, so powerful in the grand scheme of the collective consciousness. Talk about polarity, right? So I guess I'm bringing all of this up to say that when you are trying to find your truth, it it will look different every time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's the hardest thing is like accepting that your truth just comes in waves. And I think this kind of segues into our next question, unless you have anything to say.
The
Um,
last thing I was going to say is if you're looking to experience other realities, it requires play and it requires you to just like interpret whatever clair you feel is strongest, because Victoria mentioned seeing, even in the physical realm, being able to see, and that's not everyone's experience. Maybe you're hearing, maybe you're automatic writing because it's claircognizant. So when you're really looking at other realities, it comes to trust, play, and exploring those many different clairs to see which one really taps in with
mm,
you.
yes, thank you so much for clarifying that because it's important to flex your clair and to
Mm.
really fine tune that skill. It is an instrument and it
Hmm.
takes you practicing. And in order to practice, you have to have a little play, or it's going to feel like piano lessons from when you're in third grade and you just didn't want to sit with your back up straight.
Yes. And the fact that we can experience all clairs. You may be in
Mhm.
tuned with one to start, but feel free to like be like, maybe I am an auditory person or my clair audience is clearer, but I really want to start seeing. So do some guided meditations that invoke like visualizations. You can, one of my favorite things is to lead myself through a visualization. Whatever comes into mind where I'm like, now I'm in a forest and I'm like, okay, I'm walking over here. And then like, oop, now what? And like just allowing myself to give that guidance. That's a great practice too to enter these other realms, right? Guiding yourself inward into your heart center, into your own inner reality to tap into these other dimensions.
While accessing different dimensions is really fun, I think playing with perspective is probably
Mm.
one of the most helpful and relevant ways to experience reality right now because we're so bombarded by programming coming from all directions. And speaking of truth, right? Like really playing with what your perception is, or more so what you want your perception to be. And just
Mm.
reminding you that you have the choice as to what your perception is. With each and every opportunity that's presented to you, you get to choose how you respond. And your
Mm.
response is the biggest indicator of your character. This is all about character development and soul development. And I think we often hear the word character as kind of a synonym to personality, but I think character is a little bit more involved in that because it is your soul's energetic blueprint and what you're here to evolve, heal, grow, transmute. transform. And that brings us into our next question, which is, tell us a little bit more about what is a higher self?
Okay. So for me, when I thought about this question, I thought your higher self is your true self. It is you uninterrupted with the programming from society, uninterrupted from your trauma, uninterrupted from being in form and experiencing all this, right? It's your soul, your core essence, the consciousness that is embodying this vehicle right now. It's the way that I literally teach my students this, and I think I've said it in another episode. It's who's sitting at the table, right? In your brain, you have your inner child, you have your shadow, which is the part of you that holds on to all the bullshit and all the trauma you've been through. Maybe you have your voices from your guides, but then there's that true essence, that true you that is connected to source, that is connected to whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, Sophia, creatrix, whatever. It's that piece that's still connected, the bridge between the spirit and the material world. That's that piece. So when we're talking about our higher self, we're talking about if we stripped away the labels, if we stripped away the body, if we stripped away the trauma, what's left? Right? That character, not the personality we've created around the character, but that character is your higher self, is your true self. And typically your higher self knows all the other fucking things at play, so they have a better understanding and perspective because they're not locked in form, only seeing what they're physically capable of seeing.
Mm. Deep breaths. What a good reminder.
Mm.
And I think the whole idea of like all lifetimes and timelines feels very like overwhelming to my brain to like try to comprehend. And I think this is another thing to just accept that you don't need to understand it
Mm-hmm.
in order to experience it and that you're already experiencing it. And as much as we like to define things and conceptualize and analyze and have data, right? This is kind of one of those like requires trust, as you
Mm-hmm.
said. Who knew this whole theme was going to be about being true and trusting? My favorite topics. Um, and I had something really similar. I think I am defining it as a culmination of the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious parts of you
Mm.
playing out in all timelines and lifetimes.
Mm.
And I keep getting more kind of glimpses as how to define this character, present this idea of your human avatar and how you do have this energetic blueprint. There's so many amazing mediums to explore your blueprint: astrology, human design, gene keys, da da da, like, or the Akashic records. And I mean, the
Mm.
Akashic records is like basically your contract. And it's not like a contract on earth where you're like, I sign over this for that. It is very much like an outline or a blueprint. And similar to in architecture, blueprints or drawings get VE'd, value engineered, and it gives you the opportunity to reconstruct what has already been
Mm.
predefined. And that is what you are doing when you're evolving your soul. So while this human avatar can only change so much, right? Like, unless you're getting like plastic
Botox.
surgery or something, right? Like, this shit is not going to change drastically. Actually, it really could. And a lot of it does depend on your
Mm.
energy, especially when it comes to weight gain and how your body is processing the world around you, your emotions. How your body processes emotions is how your body processes food. And
Mm-hmm.
it only took me 35 years to realize that.
Yeah. And when you talk about like, bringing in that first question of other dimensions, other realities, when we look at the higher self, the way that I visualize it is, like this ball of energy that then has all these strands stripping off of it, still connected to that same ball of energy, but just separating into this physical form, a similar life, another universe, a parallel, like whatever it is, we're all separate, but we all connect, right? All these different versions of ourself, I should say, connect to that one higher self. And that's why I say the higher self has the bigger picture, because they understand that that higher self split off purposefully to learn more about itself and say, okay, if this little piece of me becomes a tiny little girl who goes through trauma, how are we going to handle that? Versus like this one that's like a patriarchal man high in society. And what does that bring when I get to embody both of those beings as well as like a Pleiadian on the other star system, right? So it is a lot to conceptualize. And like Victoria said, it comes with just trust and saying like, you're here because you know you're more than your body. That's why you're listening to us.
Yep.
So if you can understand the concept that you're more than your body, it's that part that's more than your body. That's your higher self.
Bada bing.
Which I think then brings us to our next question, which is the hardest question that Victoria and I continuously and will forever ask ourselves these questions, as well as every human being in form. Is this guidance coming from your guides or higher self? Or is this coming from anxiety or trauma or intrusive thoughts? Can we answer that question for you? Absolutely not, because you can only answer that for yourself. And the way that I like to think of it is when I'm really unsure, first thing I have to remind myself is patience. If I'm really confused, I just have to be patient with myself to let the answer rise within me. And then I start looking at the why, or where did it come from? If I am in my relationship with Andrew and I'm feeling, I don't know, unworthy or unloved, right? We feel that a lot sometimes in relationships. I have to pause and ask why, right? This is a very simple one. Why? Because then I can look at his actions and go, that's why, because he's not showing me he loves me. Or I could sit there and be like, okay, he is, but I'm still not feeling it, right? Then I get to dig a little bit deeper. It's always asking the why question when you feel confused. You don't always need to know the why, but having that deeper understanding of yourself to then go, oh, okay. So my dad abandoned me, which means that I perceive this type of action as abandonment, which is going to make me feel unworthy and push. Right now, I'm learning about myself and I can understand what's trauma versus what's intuition. And for me, again, those clairs play a big part. As a claircognizant, intrusive thoughts and claircognizant is fucking the same thing in the way my brain perceives it, right? A thought comes in. And I'm like, is this an
Yeah.
intrusive thought or is this a message from my guides? A constant checking in with yourself, your ever evolving soul, and your ever evolving being here to say, these traumas are scars. They're always going to have a seat at the table. The shadow is always going to have a seat at the table. I cannot deny that. Who's speaking at the table though? And if you keep asking the why or where that thought came from and you've learned who's at the table, you can say, oh, that's my inner child. Oh, that's my shadow, or that's my higher self. But it's not fucking easy. And it's never gonna be easy.
Actually, it does get easier. I think it gets easier when you practice
Mm-hmm.
listening to your body. And I don't want to cut you off if
No,
you're.
no, go.
I have found that it's often both my intuition
Mm-hmm.
and my trauma. And the way that I really, if I'm very lost in decision making or just like feeling into what it is, the only way I know how to tune into my intuition is to relax my nervous system. I think the other thing to note is that you can often feel if it's intuition or trauma based off of where it is in your body.
Mm.
I think when it's coming from your gut, it's often your intuition, but
Mm-hmm.
if it's a little cocktail mixed with fear, like it's probably also your intuition based off past experiences, and so it is also your trauma, right? And when you're tuning into your intuition, the voice is so subtle and so soft and so
Mm.
soothing unless you're not listening.
Well.
And then your intuition begins to scream at you. I think Tara, we kind of share this similar where we get like a very quick, clear drop
Mhm.
of our intuitive hit. And if we don't listen, we'll get signs or symbols and or the screaming, right? If it's
Mhm.
something really major. And I know we both have very sassy guides
Yep.
working with us. Which thank you so much for this beautiful year that we've been able to come to this point and share this with you. I think that's it.
Well, I absolutely agree. I think, and what came to me when you were saying that is, if you're, first of all, I've had that written down too. Your intuition comes from your gut. Your trauma is going to come from your mind or your closed heart, right? That sealed off heart, not the open heart center, but that sealed off heart. But mostly it comes from the brain because it's remembering past traumatic events and then predicting the future. That's all in your mind. So if it's coming from
Mm.
that gut feeling and you're like, I don't know why I feel this way, things just feel off, girl, that's your intuition. If you can't find the why, you're like, this just dropped out of nowhere. I'm just feeling this. But I think the key thing you said there, Victoria, was with a calm nervous system. Because when we're triggered and our and we have trauma response, our nervous system is highly activated. So if you can calm that nervous system, another episode I want to do for season 4, then you can ask that question again and say, okay, should I go through with this with a calm nervous system? And if the answer is still no, then you know, okay, my nervous system reacted because it was an alarm to push me away from this, not an activation because of past trauma. However, the big ping that my guides want to make note of is there's no mistake. There is no getting it wrong. If you follow something and it ends up being your trauma response as opposed to your intuition, that's not wrong. That just means that at this stage in your journey, that doesn't mean you're far behind in your journey. Freaking happened to me today. That this stage in your journey, you're being asked to respond with your trauma so your body knows where you still need to tend. So if you make
Mm.
the wrong choice, air quotes wrong, and after you go, fuck, that was my trauma response, then you high five your guides and you go, thank you for making me recognize that was my trauma response because that's still something that needs to be held and loved. So there's no getting it wrong. And it's a practice and it will always shift because your gifts and awareness is shifting and your trauma is shifting and healing or being tended to. It'll always look a little bit different, but you are never wrong. If you weren't able to follow your intuition, divine timing is there. That's because you were meant to be mirrored the trauma that needs to be tended to.
Mm. So beautifully stated. And I think that's a really good remedy for those moments where you say to yourself, I should have listened to my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're living with regret and remorse and
Mm-hmm.
you're mad at yourself. But if you look at it with a different perspective, like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Even though I didn't listen to you,
Mm-hmm.
my intuition, you showed me. And we have this line of communication. I hear you now.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the information coming. I'm open to receiving.
And that's so important because once we start to judge ourselves, we start to shut down. And then we cannot hear the messages. And then it's this loop of, well, I'm not hearing anything. Maybe it's not true. Maybe I'm not good enough. And now we're back into not being able to have that clear channel. So it is changing the perspective to say, thank you for bringing me this challenge and triggering me because I've learned what's been hidden in the shadows now and what needs to come to light. Is it
I'm
easier?
living this out. I'm living this out right now, girl.
Oh, girl, same. Never mind that we're approaching the new moon as we're recording this, which means I'm about to get my period. So that's another reason why I get easily triggered here.
Same.
But
Same.
yeah. And it's just give yourself some grace. Give yourself some damn grace. The rest of the world is asking so much of you. Don't ask too much of yourself. Just live and learn. And that's it. And try not to have those regrets. It will get easier. And the more you listen to your intuition, the easier your life will be because you'll be more in alignment. But sometimes You got to miss the message to hear, to see the message, to see that this is what
Yep.
needs to be tended.
I've seen, I think probably on like Instagram or like social media where they're like, this is a spiritual war. This is a war on fear. Spirituality has nothing to do. Spirituality is the antidote to it. This is a war on fear. Basically, what is happening is we're playing out and witnessing all of this fear unravel. And how you respond to fear is how your character gets to experience life. And it's as simple as that.
Mm.
And, yeah, it kind of brings me to the next thought of, if you are on the spiritual path and somewhat new and or been in it for a long time, it is so important to take breaks from consuming spiritual
Mm.
knowledge, to really sit with your own truth and to really be able to hear your inner guidance in a way that isn't coming from anything outside of you. And I guess I'm putting this little disclaimer out there because we are often attracting this vibrational high, and
Mm.
we know that when we are activated and getting to experience all these amazing synchronicities and sensations and feel liberated and our hearts are so open and free, we just want more and more and more.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we know that it's temporary, that oftentimes when we are getting to experience these like heart opening, expansive, sensuous, joyful, pleasurable moments, we live in a world of duality and polarity, and there's
Mm.
often heartbreak. And I think to really bask in the moment in which you feel just so good in your body and not be seeking anything outside of you, and to be grateful for arriving in this space, whether it feels good or not, uncomfortable or just at home, finding that sense of gratitude for whatever it is that's coming up and bubbling. And
Mm.
I say that with a very raw, open heart in the moment. And
Hmm.
it, the scars are there. And I'm like really kind of looking at it differently and tending to my scars differently,
Mm.
because they've needed a little oil or like ointment or kind of rubbing loving care, because sometimes they come to the surface in the worst times when you want to be loving and
Mhm.
open and feeling all these great sensations. But it's like this reminder of, oh yeah, remember when you totally had your heart shattered open, and
Mm.
I don't think it'll ever feel as worse as it did the first
No.
time, right?
No.
Like,
I mean, maybe, but there's just something about that
actually,
first,
probably.
yeah, yeah. Oh, fuck, I don't wanna think about that.
In different ways.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
right? Um, okay, I love how all of these questions overlap in some form or fashion.
Mhm.
And something we are asked is, and this is a word we use all the time, what does discernment mean, or can you expand upon the idea of discernment? And I think it ties in the idea of our higher selves, listening
Mhm.
to our intuition versus our trauma or gut instinct. And discernment is really the ability to perceive, understand, and integrate things clearly coming from your own truth, and living your life in a way where discernment is a tool to protect you, so you don't have to go into that fight or flight, like firing off your
Mhm.
intuition is telling you and screaming at you. Discernment is also a role in how your character shows up and how you respond to certain situations. So
Mm.
being discerning is very much it's almost like good running shoes, right?
Mm.
Like it gets you from point A to point B in your evolution. And I think sometimes you have to go back and kind of reflect on what it means to, um, I guess, tie back to your values and your sense of integrity, because that is often programmed into us, and I think
Mm.
requires a little bit of rethink, based on how you're evolving and where you are in your level of consciousness. So
Mhm.
yeah, I,
Mhm.
I think I'm also in this point where I'm like, what are my values? Like, what do I really, what am I living by, right? Like,
Girl,
what
we are tracking
truly
on the
matters?
same fucking wavelength because that's my personal practice right now is my values and what's and this is sidebar here, but that's what I'm tracking along to. Or what are my values and what are non-negotiable values versus values that
Yes.
like it's okay if we both don't hold together. Um, yeah, but I think you hit the nail on the head with discernment. When I think about discernment, I think about making the choice of if it's right for me in this current moment, in this current level of my
Mm,
evolution or not, right? I'm
yeah.
discerning, do I want to do this? Is this right for me? Is this crossing a boundary, right? It's making that choice, making your own choice, that uninterrupted choice based on who you are in this moment, not who you were or who you want to be, but who you are right now. That's going to best help with your overall potential and lining up with your best timeline, right? Victoria talked about that soul contract not being a contract, but a blueprint, a plan. So using your intuition to discern what's right for you and what's not at this given time so you can stay or realign to your path to push for the highest potential.
Mm. I think the other word that keeps popping into my mind is boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
how discernment really helps you craft what your boundaries are and your non negotiables. And when it comes to non negotiables, Tara and I are both kind of like historically cutthroat and like, this isn't going to work for me. But right now, as I'm dating and trying to define like what are the deal breakers or what am I not willing to tolerate, I've realized that messes up and just skews my perception of everything. And that the best thing for me to do is sit the fuck back in my throne and observe
Mm,
and take in that information in a way where I listen to how it feels in my mind, in my heart, in my gut, in my pussy. Like I tune into all of these energetic centers that I know are greatly affected by other people's decisions when it comes
mm.
to intimate relationships. And so boundaries,
Yeah, and it's so funny you say that because when it comes to discernment, you and I are cutthroat. This isn't good for us. We're done. However, we both have very little boundaries and discernment when it comes to relationships
totally.
because all we want to do, it comes from a place of love. All we want to do is be able to give our whole heart for to someone. So we'll sacrifice our boundaries and blur the line for what we want because we want to make sure that they're okay. But it's so interesting when we open our heart in a relationship versus like being in the field. And I'm like, that ain't in my job description. I ain't fucking doing it. Sit down. You know what I mean? Like it's just so
Mhm.
weird. And it's something that we're all navigating as humans that like, how do we have our heart open, but still be respecting ourselves, still have those boundaries, those non-negotiables. And it's okay, especially as empaths too, right? We feel what the other person is going through. We can be empathetic and say, oh, but they're just going through that. Okay, but so am I, bitch. Like, it's so
I know.
interesting where we're cutthroat and where we're like rugs that are getting stepped on. And it's like,
Yeah.
what the why can't I just balance and have like an an equal amount of discernment on both sides instead of like way too much and not at all or like lower, you know? It's and see, prime example of two women who have been spiritual or energetically aware their whole life, who have been working for years to tend to themselves, to be able to hold the light and share it out. And we're still out here trying to figure things out for ourselves, because as we grow and change, our non negotiables will change, our values will change, our perception of the world will change. So it's an ever evolving self discovery that is continuously needed.
Amen. Hallelujah. And so it is.
Mm. Mm-mm. Do you know what my mentor Kari says? And I love it. And she got it from a
Mm.
little girl, actually. They were doing ceremony and everyone said, Amen. And she said, why is it always men? Why can't we say she? So she says, Ashi. And I
Ah,
love that. I love it. I'm like, yeah,
I love that
Ashi.
too.
Um, shall we move on to my favorite question?
Okay, Tara's so stoked about this one.
I'm so stoked.
Yes,
Wait,
please.
can you I feel like a librarian with the stack of books here. So can I pretend to be the librarian?
Oh,
Let
okay.
let me go get those books for you, ma'am. Hold on one moment. Okay, so we looked in the Okay, so we looked in the section and we found quite a lot of books for early recommendations for spirituality and energy. So let me go through them a little bit. Wait, I gotta find a place to put them. This is a large stack of books if you're not
Okay,
watching.
and wait, the question
Oh, yeah.
the question was oh, could you provide us with beginner book recommendations?
Yes. So, because I have a large stack of them next to me, all I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up, introduce what it is and what it's good for, because each one of these hit upon a different form of energetics. And that way you can explore all of these books like I have, right? I have deeper books as well, but these are all the beginner books. And something that Victoria and I are going to start doing with the new year is create a lot more content on our social media. So if you're not following us yet, please make sure to follow Frequency Broads. And we're hoping that once a month we can share one of our books, whether that be a beginner book or a more advanced book. So that way you can start gaining the resources that we have outside of the classes that we may be taking or the mentors that we're working with. Here's great books that everyone has access to. Are we ready? Okay, I'm not going to be able to say these names with my dyslexia. There's no way in hell. So I'm just going to put it in. I'm just going to put it in the description, guys. I'll tell you the name of the book. You can look in the description for the link and the author below. I'm so sorry. So this one I recently got last year, bought it for Victoria as well. It's called The Witch's Herbal Apothecary. This is a great book to learn about the cycles of the season and what herbs and how to use herbs properly. It doesn't go into all herbs. It really focuses on the cycles within the year, but it does help connect that journey throughout the calendar year and what is growing and how we can utilize that in ritual, tea, or ceremony.
And there's really beautiful poetry in this book.
Oh my God. Wonderful, wonderful rituals, recipes, poems. It's a wonderful book if you're interested in the cycles that you're in, your menstrual cycle, the moon cycle, as well as herbs. The Witch's Herbal Apothecary. So this next book I've had for a long time. My mom bought this for me. It's for when we're in that dream state. This is just for you to have a little bit more knowledge on what your dreams and symbols in them may mean if you're having a hard time connecting to that. The Dream Dictionary from A to Z. Super simple. It just breaks it down like a dictionary and has the general, still has the tag on it, it has the general understanding of what each symbol may mean. I find this really helpful. I connect with other books as well to interpret my dreams, but I think this is a really great place if you're getting messages in your dreams. I'll save that one for the end. Okay, one of my absolute all-time favorites that I recommend to everyone is Tending to the Sacred. This book is about tending to yourself and tending to the earth through rituals and practice. And what I love about this book is it breaks down, say, the elements or self-love or how to start a ritual, and then it gives you direct practices that you can use in your own personal practice to start to connect to these elements as well. She also has beautiful photography and pictures. She did intuitive tattoos for a while, and I'm sad I missed that because I would love to do intuitive tattoos. But I'll just read a couple of the chapters to give you a little more understanding of what she means by tending to the sacred. They're sectioned by groundwork, tending to the earth, tending to the self, and tending to the sacred. The secret language of astrology. As you know, I'm not very versed in astrology. And to be honest, it's because this book is so powerful, but I have not really read it. So I do love this book and I utilize it to learn more about the planets, to learn more about astrological signs, but I have not read it cover to cover yet because it is so dense and so far from what I'm typically reading. So it's a great point. It has really short representation of each planet and star. However, because it's not really my forte, I haven't dived into it too much, but I know many people use this book as well. So this is a great book if you're interested into astrology. This is another amazing book. I just went to our sisterhood circle and someone brought it as well, and we were talking a lot about it. Animal Speaks: The Spiritual and Magical Powers of Creation of Creatures Great and Small. It's from the Native American perspective of animals, and it's broken down by type of animal, like mammal, reptilian, whatever. But it also goes into each individual animal, and it gives the story of the animal and its properties and how we may commune or communicate with those animals. I use this a lot when I'm out in nature and someone catches my eye or this animal keeps popping up, as well as when they come up in my dreams. So Animal Speaks, huge, huge resource to use when you're working with nature. By Candlelight is a candle magic book. It was my very first spiritual book that my mom got me, and it breaks it down into times of year or certain rituals or ceremonies you may be looking to do. And it'll give you some prayers that you can use. I still use the one for full moon, new moon, for holidays like Yule or Samhain. It'll tell you what candles to use if you want to anoint the candle. So if you're more interested in that very classic witchy candle magic, this is a great place to start. It's a super easy read. Okay, I have 5 left and then we're done. Okay. I know I have so many, and this is just like the beginner series,
It's so funny.
My favorite crystal book, The Essential Guides to Crystals, Minerals, and Stones. And this has almost every crystal or mineral that I've ever come across. There may be 1 or 2 that aren't in here. What I love about it is it'll go through the spiritual uses, mental uses, emotional, physical uses, divine guidance. It'll tell you what it looks like, what element, astro sign, chakra, all the information that you can use very simply, right? It's broken down, easy to read. It's in alphabetical order. It shows a picture of the crystal. So if you're a crystal girly like myself, this crystal, mineral, and stones essential guide is a must have.
Did you hear that?
That's my affirmation, girl. Okay. Here's another great one. Half of these are brought to you by my mother. Thanks, Mom. Chakra Balancing, a guide to healing and awakening your energy body. This is fantastic because it's actually a workbook, and it comes with 2 CDs, one a meditation for each chakra, and another one is like a morning and afternoon meditation. So you're able to follow along with some guided meditations as well as exercises, food, and prompts to really tap into each of those chakras. What I love about this is the concept that they want you to listen to the meditations and draw and journal for each chakra, and you line them up like a chakra map. And I've done this twice now, and to see how my chakras have opened or closed or expanded is so beautiful because it's all intuitive work, but you have that material, that art that you create outside of this. So if you're tapping into your chakras, if you want to learn more about them, if you want to learn how to balance them in actual practical ways in your everyday life, Chakra Balancing Workbook. Okay. So you got your crystals, you're doing candle magic, you're using your herbs, paying attention to the planets, aligning your chakras. And now, like Victoria said, you're starting to see some auras. And you're like, what the fuck does this mean? How do I even know what to do with an aura? How to cleanse my aura? How to protect my aura? Andrew bought me this one Christmas. And as you could see, all the ASMR tags that I put in this book because it's so good. It's called Understanding Auras, your handbook to seeing, reading, and protecting your auras. And it has little quizzes for you to take. It's very basic, but it is exactly a great place to start. It has beautiful art as well, just to like get you in the mood and get you right through to auras. Talks about how to cleanse them, protect them, what is an aura, what your chakras, right? It connects to those chakras as well. So there's also This author has a couple of other stories, other books. Oh, Understanding Chakras and Understanding Crystals. I don't have those two because I have my other books, but this author has a whole series about that basic beginner for all of this type of energetic work. Okay. This book, I wasn't sure if I should put it in the beginner, but I thought, your girl's a mathematical mind. And if I would have known that this was a beginner book from the beginning, I probably would have accessed it sooner. So much so that I'm using it and want to use it with my students when we're looking at mathematical concepts. But this book is A Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe, the Mathematical Archetypes of Nature, Art, and Science. So this is more for my artsy and math nerds who are looking at sacred geometry and how the matrix is pretty much laid out and how we can construct our perception of the universe using mathematics and geometry, and how we see these sacred geometries play out in nature, in art, in anything really. So it's a little bit more in depth. Maybe it would be like a beginner plus, but I wanted to put it out here for those who are more mathematically and analytical. And then my final one, I wanted to put this in because it's a good overarching book, and there's plenty of books like this. This one's called Practical Magic, A Beginner's Guide to Crystal, Horoscope, Psychics, and Spells. This is a super, super basic book that slightly goes over some pagan holidays. What does it mean to be, the Clares? What does it mean to look at your horoscope or crystals? This might be a great book if you're not sure which avenue you want to explore first, because it gives you just the tip, just the taste of these different avenues you can go. Not all of the avenues, just a couple, and it's a good way if you're really confused and feeling overwhelmed. Now, that's a lot of books, I know, and it's a lot of information to take in. So just take a moment for yourself and think about, if you're looking for books, what kind of avenue in spirituality do I want to explore? Whether it be more earth-based, more physical-based, like in my body, or more external-based, right? And it allows you to pick up these pieces and say, okay, understanding they're all pieces to a larger puzzle, but where can I tap in first? So if you have more questions about these books specifically, you can DM us or email us at frequencybroads@gmail.com. That way I can give you more information about it, but I had so many, I wanted to broadly go over them. And like I said, follow us on Instagram and you'll be able to see more of a deep dive into how to use these books, and as well as more intermediate or advanced books for those who have maybe had the basics covered for them. And that's my librarian's spiel.
Thank you. What great resources. I have 3 audio options if you
Ooh.
are not in the mood to open up a book, which I think you should. Um, so 3 of my go-tos, I love me some Abraham Hicks if I'm like wanting to get my subconscious mind kind of operating in a higher vibration in the vortex, as
Mm.
they say. Matt Kahn. I think Matt Kahn's YouTube videos are, I was raised on Matt Kahn YouTube videos, so go check it out.
Mhm.
Link below. And then a podcast that we both really love is Intuitive Astrology
Mm.
with Molly McCord.
Mhm.
There is a lot of astrology information on there that might seem overwhelming, but they're just pockets of gold where you will be like, this is exactly what I needed to hear.
Mm.
And it's always delivered in divine timing and with whatever's going on astrologically. So, highly recommend those 3.
Hmm. Well, I think we chewed off your ear enough for some questions and basic foundational knowledge that we needed to smooth out a little bit here. If there's any more questions, please reach out to us. It doesn't need to be waiting for an episode. We could always just message you personally or may share it on our stories because others may have questions like you. So, like, share, subscribe, prescribe, and make sure that you're following our Instagram because we will be adding a lot more content come the start of the new year.
Woo woo.
We love you.
We love you so much. Bye.